Guys, there is something really weird happening aboard the International Space Station. And listen, this stuff is kind of above my pay grade, so I'm not going to even sit here and pretend as if I understand all of this complicated stuff that's going on up there in space. But yesterday, a very scary situation unfolded. In fact, I recorded a whole video about it yesterday, but then I had to scrape the video or scrap the video because representatives for the International Space Station came out on social media and basically said, hey, there's nothing to see here, folks. This was all a training exercise. But basically, yesterday, recordings came out from the International Space Station that sounded as if there was some type of medical emergency going on. We could hear correspondence from the International Space Station back down to planet Earth, and we could hear that they're kind of panicking, trying to get the commander into a special suit because he was suffering from hypobaric exposure or some type of decompression sickness. There was literally even talks of a possible emergency landing, which I didn't even know was possible, but they were possibly going to bring down the International Space Station somewhere in the ocean near Spain because supposedly there was some type of medical center there that specialized in whatever the hell was going on. So these recordings got out there and people picked up on it fast. Like I said, I made a video, and then about an hour later, right before I released my video, they came out and said, oh, this is all a test, guys. This was all a training exercise. Now, after this happened, I started looking into the situation a little bit more, and I remembered a story that I heard about the International Space Station from a couple of days ago that I didn't really look into until now. But we'll get into that in just a moment. First, I want to play some snippets from these recordings that we heard yesterday, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
So if we could get Commander back in his suit, get it sealed, and step into procedure 5.180 for suited hyperbaric treatment, section 3 for oxygen post-splashdown, that would be my recommendation. I'll copy. Copy. Understand that this is a best effort treatment, and so whatever you can do is going to be better than doing nothing. And just as an FYI, prior to closing the visor and pressurizing the suit, I would like you to check his pulse one more time. How copy? Correct, yes. That would be, actually, Sis, you're on this call. How much oxygen do we have remaining in minutes? Perfect. So yes, then I would like you to have 100% O2 flowing via mask while you get the suit on. Prior to closing the visor and pressurizing, I'd like you to do a pulse check one more time and then step into 5.180, section 3. Is there a way that the mask can be attached? So is there a way that we could get the suit over the head, have the visor open, and put the mask at least close to his face while you finish sealing up the suit, or is that not feasible? Copy. Copy. Well, I think at this point, because the hypobaric exposure is the big problem, and given his exam, I am concerned that there are some severe DCS hits, and so I would recommend trying to get him in the suit as soon as possible and giving oxygen as best as able during that process, but the best thing would be to get him in the suit at ASAP. Thank you.
So, folks, I don't really know what's going on with these recordings. These recordings were out there for a little while yesterday, and everyone was, picking them apart and discussing them. And then all of a sudden, an hour or so later, they came out and said it's all a training exercise, nothing to see here. Now, is that the truth? Maybe, possibly. But when I read this story and when I heard the recordings, it was really scary to me. Because I had heard just a couple of days before all of this happened yesterday that there was some type of superbug, what's being described as a superbug, aboard the International Space Station. And it turns out, just like they've been tampering with and doing way too much experimenting on these deadly diseases here on Earth at these little labs and stuff, you know what I mean? Turns out they're working on some really weird stuff up there in the International Space Station. They're doing some really questionable research on certain bacteria, diseases, and illnesses. And when I saw this news yesterday, I'm like, holy crap, holy cow. Goddamn freaking superbug that got a hold of these astronauts. This is something like out of the movie Alien. Now the International Space Station is going to come crashing down to Earth. We're going to go try to save the astronauts, but they're going to infect the entire world with this space-borne illness. But I don't know what the heck is going on anymore. I'm really questioning if this was really just an exercise. Like I said, maybe it was. I'm not here to tell you it wasn't. But it's kind of weird that all of this is happening at the same time that they're reporting this new superbug. So let's go ahead and dive into this article about the superbug aboard the International Space Station. Drug-resistant superbug that mutated in orbit thrives inside the International Space Station. It's an out-of-this-world infestation. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station are living with a newly discovered supercharged drug-resistant bug, according to a new scientific study. Scientists discovered a mutated version of a common superbug that is resistant to antibiotics, according to a study published in the scientific journal Microbiome. The superbug, officially named Enterobacter bungdenicis. Listen, folks. Let me try that again. Enterobacter bungdenicis is wholly distinct from its Earth counterpart. The singular nature of the stresses of the space environment, distinct from any on Earth, could be driving these genomic adaptations. Scientists isolated 13 strands of the bug over 2 years from various different locations in the ISS, leaving it in a closed human environment to adapt on its own. Microorganisms introduced into the ISS must either thrive or die. E. burgundensis found a way to adapt, highlighting the need for more robust preventative measures to protect the health of astronauts, according to the report. Isolated in the ISS, scientists were able to observe the prevalence and the spread of the bacterium over time. The ISS offered a particularly unique habitat for the microorganism to try to live in, including microgravity, elevated carbon dioxide levels, and radiation. On Earth, Enterobacter microorganisms are typically the cause of infections, like urinary tract infections. Scientists chopped up the changes that they would observe in the strands to the impact of existing in space and their hypothesis. The ISS has previously been used to house a slew of bacteria and even fungi in order for scientists to understand the impact that residing and traveling through outer space can have on microorganisms. So, folks, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, hell, 100 years from now, if we're all still alive, most likely we won't be. But if advancements in technology allow us to live for another 100 years, basically what I'm saying, folks, is in the future, if we have some type of new virus or some type of new crazy sickness introduced to the world from outer space, do not be surprised. Because what's happening here is they're taking already dangerous diseases, bacteria, viruses, you name it, and then they're shooting them up into space to see how space affects these viruses, bacteria, you name it. And we honestly don't know what could happen, how these different things can mutate. We don't fully understand that. There's no possible way for us to fully understand that because we have not been doing experiments in outer space, on space stations and in space shuttles. We haven't been doing this long enough to know the long-term effects. So don't be surprised if we have some astronauts come crashing back down to Earth that are highly infected with some weird stuff that we're not going to be able to understand. And it will be something that we brought upon ourselves once again, just like a few years ago. So knowing that we're doing these type of things in space, it makes me feel uneasy. I understand there's a need for doing stuff like this. I mean, there's arguments that could be made. Oh, well, we got to find cures for future illnesses and future diseases. We got to stay ahead of it. Listen, it's come to the point where it really seems as if, and it looks as if, you are creating these things on purpose so then you can sell us the cure. So I'm not really comfortable, and I don't trust these government agencies who are working on all of these illnesses because I don't think that they really have our best interest in mind, and I think they already proved that a few years ago. But you take this knowledge about now what we know is happening aboard the International Space Station. And don't get me wrong, we already knew that they were doing tests and stuff up there, but we didn't know about this new superbug until recently. At least the general public didn't. But it's weird that they break this news to us 2 days, literally. This news comes out, and then 2 days later, all of a sudden we get these recordings from the International Space Station that sounds like there's medical emergencies going on board, and it sounds like there's conversations of bringing the space station down, and then you tell us there's nothing to see here. This is all a training exercise. Now, like I said, it very well could be. I don't know any better. You don't know any better. Who are we to say that that wasn't a training exercise? All I'm saying is that this training exercise and these recordings literally come out days after you all admit that you're working with, freaking superbugs up there that are resistant to antibiotics and medicine. But hey, who knows what's going on? All we know is there's some weird stuff going on up there on the International Space Station. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.